What? Are you serious? You guys, calm down. Because Nibiru is not coming this month. I just wanted to make this video for those that have seen my video a few weeks ago with Gill Broussard. We had him on our broadcast, and wow, that was an amazing yet kind of disappointing video. And I want to say disappointing because a lot of people were expecting Nibiru to come yesterday, according to his timeline that he gave for many years after doing about 4 years of research on this. And I wasn't saying for sure anything was going to happen that day. I said, based on his timeline, this is what I see this, coming in as. And ultimately, it's just one man's idea. God has given him a lot of information. He's the only Christian that I really know that has done research extensively on this subject. But he's not the only person that I did research on. Not person, but the only person that I basically looked at as far as their research on Nibiru. And I found some very interesting things just in the last month or so, because I wasn't really expecting these things to happen on this time, because honestly I thought we'd be able to see it a lot sooner. I thought that this thing would bring more judgment, coming in, to the the 40-day window that he was talking about. I thought that we would ultimately we would see a peace treaty like he was saying. But it's God's mercy that we're still here and that we have more time to reach more souls. So I wanted to make this broadcast because ultimately there's a lot of theories going around. There's a lot of misinformation. We have a lot of people that are seeing Nibiru, or what they believe to be Nibiru, in the sky. And I just want to kind of just give my own 2 cents on all these things. I feel like I have a lot to add. I studied about 6 or 7 different people and their work, and I'll watch like a 3-hour interview just to get a little pieces of information that will be relevant, because this is why I do what I do, to help you guys, to inform you so you can make the right decision. We all know that Jesus is coming soon. So I guess the big question is, are we going to see Nibiru before the Lord comes? I don't know. I don't think that this is the sign that is given to the bride. I think this is the sign that's given to the wicked, adulterous generation. It says no sign will be given except for the sign of Jonah the prophet. And also it talks about, it says when you see the sign of the Son of Man coming in the clouds, it says look up, be watchful, for your redemption draws near. All these different things. I don't think it talks about that specifically in that verse, but ultimately these are the people that I believe will be giving the warnings ahead of time. And because they didn't heed to the warnings, now they're going to have a warning from Nibiru. And I don't know if it has to fit on a certain feast day or a timeline. Gill Broussard was saying that it has to happen basically on Passover during that time, because he says during the day that you'll be able to see it. And that's what has happened, I guess, in the other timelines that he's studying, the 14 different judgments that the Lord has brought on his people. And could be. It's very interesting. So I wanted to kind of go back a little bit. Where people are asking, how is there any proof of this? Why is this all of a sudden coming out now? They should, NASA should have been talking about this a long time ago. Well, the truth is they have known about this. I guess it's the early 1800s or 1900s, I want to say. And there was one man by the name of Zechariah Sitchin. And he was born in 1920, lived until 2010. And I actually have an article pulled up. I'm going to try to read it as I talk to you guys. It's pretty interesting. So he believes that about 50 years ago that he determined that Nibiru was about 50 years away. So that puts us right around this timeline. Pretty interesting. And he believes that there's some some things are going to be happening, I guess, when Nibiru comes, is what he calls it. I know that Gill says Planet 7X. So he made a series of predictions. He wrote a book called The 12th Planet. And, of course, NASA, love to debunk this guy because, they don't, NASA is lying to us. I don't believe in the flat Earth, and I believe that we did land on the moon, but ultimately they're not telling us the truth about these planetary bodies. They call it Planet X. Planet X is any planetary body past Pluto, and they believe that this is past the Kepler belt ultimately, and that's why Planet 9 just came out on January 20th. They were discussing Planet 9, and they were saying that it's in like a 20,000 year orbit, and this thing is 10 times bigger than the Earth, which is close because I guess Gill says it's 7 times, but who knows. But they actually they wrote an article saying beyond 2012 why the world didn't end, and they were talking about that if Nibiru or Planet X were real and headed for an encounter with Earth in 2012, then astronomers would be able to track it for at least the past decade, and it would be visible by now to the naked eye. So it obviously doesn't exist. So we got to listen to NASA because they know what they're talking about, right? But there was another interesting article, and I started off with Paul Begley because this guy has been doing so much homework and research, and Bible prophecy expert. I actually had a good conversation with him towards the end of the last year. I think it was right before New Year's. He actually gave me his number. I called him up. We talked, and he said he's working on a new book, and I mentioned Gill Broussard's work because he had him on his show, and I also mentioned Renee Moses and Steve Fletcher as people that are putting out specific dates. And Renee Moses, she believes that now, I know she's changed all the dates, and she was the one that uploaded my main testimony video, so I give her a lot of credit because she was the one that basically got me interested in learning about these prophetic timelines. Really, I knew about prophecy before her, but as far as knowing about the Jubilee year and all these specific events and everything to take place, and she thought 923 was the date. A lot of people call her a false prophet. She's just human like all of us. We know in part, we prophesy in part. It says where there are prophecies, they will fail. She's not claiming to be a prophet. She's just a researcher. Same thing with Steve. Steve believes that. He says because there was abomination of desolation on 3/23/2013. Obama stood in the Church of Nativity, and that's the abomination of desolation. And he's saying that you take 1,335 days, and then you come to November 17th, 2016, and he's like so adamant. He made a video about it, and I didn't watch the video, but I know the guy's work. I've looked at a trumpet for my people for a little over a year now, and I think he's credible. He has a lot of stuff, but ultimately it's not his decision. And I don't think you can predict it down to a day. I thought you did. I thought you could, but I don't believe that anymore. There's like 15 different predictions I made, according to other people, and I said, I believe this is happening, on these dates, but I didn't say the Lord told me this is going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then something's wrong. I might have said something, very sternly to warn people, but my whole purpose is to bring people to the Lord. It's not to scare people. It's not to try to, come up with a date and be like, Nostradamus or something. I don't care about that. So I'm just trying to help people and trying to put everything together, bring all the watchmen together. I mentioned that I know about close to 40 watchmen on YouTube, people that I talk to. I spent a few thousand hours last year studying prophecy, reading the Bible, obviously, articles, videos, just pretty much anything that I could get my hands on to understand these things. I really take this seriously, you guys. I don't just, do this part-time. It's my full-time job, and pretty soon I will have a full-time job because I got hired, but that's a whole other story. So yeah, there's 3 Hebrew autistic men that, and Paul Begley actually did a video on this, and their names are Daniel, Benjamin, and Menachem, and they use facilitated communication. You guys probably saw this video, and it's interesting because I'm not going to go through. I'm going to include this article, so you guys can read it. I'm not just going to read it, because you can do your research on this. But all 3 of them have had accounts basically saying that they believe that God told them that this thing is coming, and the evidence corroborates with what they're showing. Excuse me. And I guess what was more interesting than reading the article was going through the comments, because there's a lot of people that ultimately they might not have videos or or might not have a channel or post articles, but they have a lot of information because they study these things, and some people actually have more information than the person writing the article, which is interesting. But back to my discussion about these researchers. So Sitchin, he believes that there was an ancient race, the Anunnaki, which is the Nephilim, and the giants in the Bible. It talks about that. You have the Book of Enoch as well, which I don't say the Book of Enoch is 100%, but it's interesting. It's historical. He believes that this thing is going to come in, a certain timeline. First, he thought it was going to be close to I think it was the year 3000. Then he changed it to 2050 or something, and the article said that he believes it's going to happen. I guess around now. So, maybe the next couple of years. And we don't know. I mean, it could be. It's very possible. It could be this year. There is a gentleman that I was talking about in the last broadcast that I don't believe he's a Christian. He does say our Lord Jesus, so that's interesting. I mean, even the devils believe, they know who the Lord is. So I think that he's being used by these spirits to release information. And his name is Cameron Faley. And he's the only one that I know of right now that believes that Nibiru is on a path, not to collision ultimately, but it's going to pass through our orbit this year. He believes that the destruction is going to come towards June or August. And after watching three 3-hour-long interviews by this guy, the last one was really hard to watch. I've come to the understanding that that this guy he's putting out this information not just to warn, but also to release something that is going to reveal the plans of these fallen angels. It's crazy that we're having people that are coming out of the woodwork right now that have been hiding this information. He is a consultant for the wealthiest families, the Illuminati. His father, I guess, was very instrumental in setting up the new government in Iraq after Saddam was ousted. So it's very interesting how he's putting all this together, and they have ties to all these families. And he used to work for central banks, controlling trillions of dollars. I mean, this guy is very plugged in. I mean, he knows what's going on. He talks about the Illuminati like I think he was part of it. Obviously, to be involved with this, to know all this information, you have to be sworn in. I guess the Freemasons, and he's releasing all this information. He's like, the only reason I can say all this is because it's public information. So he's getting to some deep stuff in this, and he believes, I guess, that because he believes the Bible. He also looks at the Quran, which I don't read the Quran, never have, but he believes that this is his idea, it's not mine. I don't know if this is right or not. I'm not going to say that I believe it, but it's interesting. He believes that there's passages in the Quran that says that they'll be playing games and this thing will come. And he said that there was a warning last year around August 18th, which is interesting because that was the day that, the next day I got fired from my job for preaching the gospel, and then I started my ministry. So he believes that around that time that there was a warning that this thing was going to come, basically. Or actually, it's before the time that was the day that this thing was going to come, and they were saying that people need to prepare, and he thought that was a year warning. So he's saying that that's going to happen by August this year. And he's saying about the middle of August, you have the Olympics, and he's saying that they were playing games and this thing came in, and that's what they saw. And it's interesting because I was watching a Nine Nania video, I think it was a few weeks ago. She was talking about how it was the football game that she saw. She had this dream, and she said that after that, she said there was a juggling act, and she said then the rapture happened in a football game. Maybe she was seeing the Olympics, I don't know. But he also believes, that there's going to be a 2-month window. He also believes in the 40-day warning, just like Gill. And I'm not going to get through I'm not going to talk about all of his predictions, and I'm not going to talk about all the things that Gill said, because you can watch the last video that I made. You can see that with Gill's interview. I think it's very in-depth. I don't believe everything that he says. I don't think we have to be in Jerusalem or Israel to be part of the rapture. I think that is for the Jews, and I think that's after the rapture that they're going to have to flee to the mountains. But he's definitely welcome for his own opinions. He has his own opinions, and I respect him. He's a wonderful man, and he was gracious enough to come on my broadcast. And just like I talked to Paul Bagley about different things, he believes that this is not the year for Nibiru. And it's interesting, he said that last year before Gill Broussard even started talking about this, because I guess there was supposed to be a sign, I want to say, on January 10th, that we're supposed to see this thing below the moon, and that didn't happen. And then we're supposed to see something happen, I guess it was going to be in February 15th. That was a 40-day warning, and he said because that didn't happen, then that's the 40-day warning is not going to happen. And I know a lot of people are trying to say, oh, well, it's still going to come, we still have time. And honestly, I don't think Nibiru is our sign anyway. And there's some people who are saying that I believe the rapture will happen in the barley harvest, and that ends Pentecost. So then the question is, are we in a calendar that has a leap month? The barley, I guess, was ripe yesterday. The barley harvest started on Nisan 1, which was spotted by it was a total solar eclipse on March 9th. Then you have the 23rd, which they believe is on Passover. So they say that there was a blood moon, and it wasn't a blood moon where I was, but I guess certain areas it was shaded red or something, and they say, oh, this is the first pentad in human history. And I think it's interesting if that's the case. I don't know for sure if this is the right calendar that we're on. I think it's very possible that Passover could be next month. That's what, if you type in Passover 2016 in Google, that's what it says. It says April 22nd. So back to talking about these different researchers. So I saw another video yesterday about a researcher that was studying, I guess, Sitchin's work. And this guy is not a Christian. I definitely believe that he is sowing misinformation. His name is Andy Lloyd, and he also works with Mark Keller and some other people. He claims to be an independent researcher, but his whole thing is he's like, this thing is not even close to our orbit, and it's like the size of Jupiter, and he's saying this thing, he's like, it doesn't even matter if it's gonna come close to Earth. He says, the only thing is it's going to reveal that, who we are, and he's going to say these aliens are going to come and they're going to help us and all this. It's just all, this is part of the strong delusion that we're hearing. There's people that are sowing misinformation, and this guy was also on the same channel as Cameron Fowley, and this was the Camelot House channel, I believe, Camelot House or something. Which it's New Age. I don't believe everything they're saying. But there is some little bit of truth that they're giving, and I try to really scan these videos and these articles for information, and it's a lot of work. There's also people that have gotten back to me, like Mark Holmes. He's been doing research on this as well, and he believes it's there, and he's been studying, and he believes it's a few years away. Then you have people like David Meade, and he has an idea that because the sign of Revelation 12:1 is going to be supposedly on September 23rd, 2017, he says that Nibiru cannot come until after that time. And he says it's going to be like October 2017. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And then, and then you have people, that, they have charted this thing for many, many, many years, that work for NASA. You have people like, his name is Mike Brown. And he was the Pluto killer, so he basically proved that Pluto does not exist because it's too far out or whatever he was saying, and now he's starting to come to the conclusion that maybe that these people that were talking about Planet X are right, and he wants to make sure that he gets the accolades for this, which is ridiculous. It's all about hubris. I want to have the name of this planet so I can say that I found it in the history books or whatever. It's ridiculous. So you have the Caltech astronomers that basically put out a worldwide article. Basically, they're not article, but a worldwide study that was published, everywhere about Planet 9, and I guess there was another article back in December that was put out prematurely by some other astronomers, and they're trying to corroborate the evidence and everything, and NASA's just like, oh, well, this thing, it's not even, what you think it is, and it's, they're saying that Planet 9 it's not even, it's like in a whole different orbit, and like I said, it's like 20,000 year orbit or whatever, and it's just, there's so much stuff. You type in Nibiru, you won't get any truth most likely. You type in Planet X. I mean, there's just so many things, that pull from that. So it's really hard to really see, who has the facts. Why do we need to know about this? I don't think it's that important that we know exactly what the timeline is. If we're prepared, if we're ready to meet the Lord, Jesus Christ, then, he's going to take care of us. So it's not going to matter. I think we should still have a few months of food and water. And if you have money in the bank, take it out, maybe buy some silver. That's just my opinion. I don't think we need to, start arming ourselves and, preparing for war. And, there's obviously all these government agencies. Paul Bagley did another video. I get a lot of information from him, as you can see. And he put out videos saying that there's people from the FBI, the CIA, the FEMA, all these different, government intelligence agencies, the agencies that are basically releasing information, and their people are retiring, and they're hiding out in underground bunkers, and it says in the Bible that people, it says the kings, the rich men, the mighty men, all these people are going to be they're going to be crying out for the rocks to fall upon them. Does that mean they're going to be underground in the bunkers? It's very possible. So we got to piece everything together, but we also have to use the discernment of the Holy Spirit. We don't have to, worry about this thing, killing us, if we're Christians. If we're saved and we're going, home with Jesus, if those people are not going to be in the rapture, it says in this article that two-thirds of the world will die. Now, I don't know if that's true. I thought a third, of all these things will be stricken, and then a third of the people and all that. But, there's going to be a timeline. It's going to be very quick. I don't know if we have 7 years left to this day, but this is what I do believe. I do believe, after realizing this now, that the sixth seal is not our sign to leave. I believe that we will be gone before the Antichrist comes on the scene. Why do I believe that? Well, there's a lot of scriptures that talk about that. But the main one, area I want to look at is Revelation chapter 4. It says, come up hither. That could be the rapture. After that, he sees the Lamb of God. It says, no one's able to open up the scroll. And then he starts to open the scroll, and then the judgments begin. So he's already safe seeing these things in heaven. Could that be symbolic, representing something else? Yeah, sure. You have people like Irvin Baxter, who believes that we've already seen the fifth trumpet or something, and there's going to be a sixth trumpet war soon, and he's saying, that was Chernobyl many years ago, and you got Saddam Hussein and all these things, and he tries to coincide all these natural events in the past with things that have not happened yet. We have not seen any trumpet judgments, I'm telling you right now. I love the guy, he has an amazing ministry, End Time Ministries, but he is not right. That is the number one error, just like, you have amillennialists, you have preterists. These people are not discerning the Spirit, but I'm not going to mock them. I'm not going to say, if you don't believe in the rapture, you're not, hearing from the Lord. There's people that, they think the craziest things, but, for whatever reason, God has given that understanding. We just need to, to let that rest. We have our understanding. I believe that we're going to be taken before the Great Tribulation, which I believe is going to be very soon. I believe that we're about halfway through. I am pre-wrath myself. I used to be pre-trib because I didn't know what part of the tribulation that, we're going to see. And I believe the bride has been protected for 3.5 years. I believe that. We know in other parts of the world, there's people that are dying for their faith. And people say, well, that means that the fifth seal has been opened. I think it's a shadow. There's definitely things to come, but that fails in comparison to what's going to happen when the Great Tribulation actually begins and these things begin to happen. And they see true persecution. They see that the demons are manifesting ultimately, and the Nephilim are coming back. Man. All right, so I want to read this because I posted this article in my group that I have, and a really good friend of mine, her mom, and my friend is Maya, her mom Diane, she actually commented on some really interesting things in this article. I just want to read this because she's been doing a lot of research. She's been a watchman for a while, I guess. It says, it is well documented and real, and it's on its way. This is Nibiru. Check Martha Matthews, strongly non-Christian, and Steve Olson. He has the videos, and also you have Dill Martin showing that this thing is coming around the sun. It's visible. Whether it's a sundog or lens flare, you make the decision. I don't know. So this is both among a large community of astronomers, some watching since 2006, and I know there's a lot more than that before that. NASA has reportedly been covering it up literally, with space umbrellas, formerly hidden by a black patch on Google Earth. The patch has now been removed. Communicating with it, as suggested in the article that you referenced, falls into the ancient Hopi prophecy, Stone in Mind 2012, sign of Nibiru coming. We remember 2012, December 21st. That was supposed to be, a lot of people saying, oh, that's going to be the end of the world and all these things. That was the beginning of the age of Aquarius and all these things. And this guy, I want to say it's, Cameron Foley, he believes that basically from that point on, that these seers, these people that are contacting these fallen angels or whatever, and trust me, I don't want to ever, get into that or understand what that's all about. I follow Jesus. I don't listen to other, spirits. But this is what they're saying. They're saying that they had foresight up till that point, or an ability to see into the future up to that point, I guess. And they said after that, it was just like a time, that they didn't know what's going to happen. That's why, the enemy's like kind of scrambling, trying to figure out what to do. And, he was saying that there's not going to be, the New World Order is not going to be started until after Nibiru comes, he believes. He says there's not going to be a financial collapse, there's not going to be a war, because they can't do that, because they're preparing right now. They have, a little bit of time to get ready before this can happen. If they do that, it's going to upset their plans, and, obviously it's going to be bad for them too, because they really live in this world. But, who knows? So, she's saying that, it's the end of the Mayan calendar, not the end of the world calendar, and it's not an art of Christian reality, which I don't think it is. Likely, they're communicating with demons disguised as extraterrestrials, like I said, and so the hype about 2012 was sort of an intro to what's really coming. Since the Nibiru orbit is fully documented at 3,600 elliptical orbit years around the Earth, that's what Sitchin says. It's not what Gill Broussard says. And I don't know who's right. I think Gill Broussard is right on that. And postulates to now be how Yahweh used it to accomplish releasing the earth's crust and rain for Noah's flood, as well as again for Moses parting the Red Sea and Joshua's long day, that formed fireballs, meteorites, on the enemies of God in Israel. It is timed perfectly to be the deliverer of the woes of the tribulation. Interesting. And then she quotes the scripture here. We know in Matthew 24 where all these things happen. And then she talks about here, this is the part it says, when you look up an abomination of desolation, because it says when you see the abomination of desolation, here's what it says. It's both biblical and rabbinic Hebrew. The word abomination is a familiar term for an idol, and therefore may well have the same application in Daniel, which should accordingly be rendered in agreement with Ezra 9:1-4. Motionless abomination, or also appalling abomination. The suggestion of many scholars, Hoffman, Nestle, Bevan, and others, that is a designation for Jupiter and is simply a intentional perversion of his usual appellation. That's a different word. Baal Shem, Lord of Heaven, is quite plausible. I guess she just copy and pasted this. I don't know what she's talking about. So it makes one consider the abomination of desolation is the appearance among the stars used as holy guides, a perversion of stars where Jupiter should be, or near Jupiter, i.e. Nibiru. This makes sense why if you see the abomination from your rooftop, not to go inside your house, but to flee to the mountains, like I said. Therefore, it says, likewise, if you are in the field, don't waste time going to pick up your coat. Just flee. And the reason why such a rushing would be awful for pregnant nursing mothers, not to mention the fear, as well as having to travel on the Sabbath, which is forbidden, and would cause such conflict in the mind, or whether to travel, flee, and obey the Sabbath. This is not to say that there won't be an Antichrist abomination in the temple holiest place too. I mean, I believe there could be, very possibly, a third temple with the man of sin, son of perdition, stands, saying that he's God. I don't think he's going to actually say he's God. I think it's going to be more symbolic, just like how Nebuchadnezzar, unless you bow down to me, I'm going to throw you in the fiery furnace. So, let's see here. Where was... I lost my place there. Okay, so I'm wondering if both don't happen together. Also, wherever the carcass is, there will be eagles gathered together, I think may refer to the place where people whose souls have not been reborn, so they are the carcasses left to the eagles or vultures, some translations, after the rapture of the saints. They will believe when vulture liars say, come see him in this room, or come see him in the desert, and delude people with holograms into worshiping a false creature claiming godship. For we know that as lightning flashes from the east to the west, so shall the appearing of the true Son of Man be. That's a mouthful right there. So she definitely believes, that this thing is real. She's been obviously studying this and, using the text, and that's how we're supposed to do. We're supposed to study ourselves to prove unto God. We don't just believe anything that anyone says, and I don't believe everything that I hear. I do a lot of research. I try to talk with certain people, before I, start following a channel extensively. I want to kind of know who the person is. I might, do some research on them. I might, watch some videos, testimonies, or ultimately I might even try to talk to them on Facebook or get them on the phone, because we need to know who we're dealing with. If we can trust these people, if we're going to be letting these people, into our lives and change our thoughts, and and not change our thoughts, but ultimately influence our thoughts, in our life, we need to know who we're listening to. That's why it says, beware of, of false teachers, and a false prophet is someone ultimately that is trying to deceive people for their own selfish gain. It's someone that is leading someone away from Christ, intentionally or not intentionally, and someone that is ultimately admired by the world. Who can we think of that fits these categories? There you go. It's not someone that misses a date. It's not someone that might, say something in a word that doesn't really add up or whatever. So that's what I wanted to say there. Ultimately you can just take it any way you want. I do want to share 2 words that I received. I've done some videos on this. I did this in my broadcast as well, and I think it's really interesting to point these things out, as well as reveal, what we believe to be true, to other people, because a lot of people they don't do research. They don't have time to study these things. They don't care, and frankly, it's going to be to their own demise. If they're not right with God and they just want to reject these things, then that's up to them. So here's the word that I received, that I actually did on my broadcast last week. And I was just in prayer for about an hour and a half or so, asking the Lord, can you give me a word for your people to show them, ultimately what's going to happen. And I felt like this is what I know this is what he put in my spirit, and I started writing it down, and I pretty much just wrote it in one shot. I think I added like a few things in the beginning because I wanted to make it, personal and readable. But it's from the Lord, and we know in part, we prophesy in part, and I believe, like I said in the broadcast, that when we're prophesying, we're hearing from the Lord, but we're also taking from our own understanding. It's like we have a well, and if we have a really close relationship with the Lord, we know the Bible, and we hear, a lot of truth in our lives. We're not sowing misinformation, and we're going to pull from a clean well, where it's going to be a deep well, and and it's going to be whatever we receive back is going to be, our representation of what the Lord has revealed to us, because we don't know everything. But people that don't have a relationship with the Lord, that might be a dirty well. They might, put some words in there that might not be from the Lord, but we can't say that they're false. We can't, call them a false prophet. So my word is, for you guys, is, my dear servant Justin, please write these words of love to those that will hear. You have asked for a new song, and because you have opened your mouth, I will fill it. The days ahead will be great for some, but very hard for most. The transition will be seamless for my bride, but this world will be an upheaval. Remember the parable of the fig tree. When her leaves come out and her branches are tender, you will know that summer is near, and I am right at the door. This does not mean what most think, and I do not only operate in the natural realm, and summer is more than just a season. I'm not really sure what that means. Many people think they have me figured out. They understand my times and my laws because I have put that understanding in their heart. This world thinks from their heart, but I am calling a people to myself that are seeking me in the spirit and truth. And in truth, love will direct you to my heart, and only then will you have a glimpse of my face. I love my children with an everlasting love, and I would never hurt or punish them for their mistakes. I created this world in love, and I'm going to recreate it through the love of my creation. What is true love, you ask? It is surrender and humility when you are in the midst of a battle. It is being a light in a dark place and a shelter in a storm. You will soon shine brightly for all to see, and this will be the beginning of your next assignment. Don't fear, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. You must stay close to me and seek me with all of your heart in these last moments. I love you, my children, and I love you, my brides. Please do not think of yourself more highly than you are. Esteem yourself as one of the least, and I will use you in the greatest way possible. Being submitted to me is what I have created for you, and I can't wait to be with you. Your road has been long, but the destination will be worth the wait. You will soon see what I mean and will understand why I have allowed these circumstances to happen to you. This is part of the pruning process, and you are all growing into beautiful trees for others to eat from. Your fruit is being more ripe, and I'm going to continue the work I began in you until that day. That day will be so glorious, and you'll be so happy when you see me face to face. Keep pressing, reaching, and growing for me, my beautiful trees. Cover those who are afflicted and need rest in my love. Remember who you are in me, and don't forget who I am to you. Remember what I've done for you, because I can and will do it again if you believe. Yeshua. So thank you all. This is Justin Koetter with Just in Time Ministries signing out. I love you guys. I hope you have a blessed Resurrection Day. If I get this video up today, this is Resurrection Day. And I'll talk to you all soon. Shalom.